Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Dean Reece here with Sarai Ekblad, who is a student here at Southern Illinois University, who is someone that does not necessarily look like she has an obvious, well-known disability, but Sarai, if you could tell our viewers a little bit about the issues that you face here and a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you for introducing me. Like you said, my name is Sarai. I'm a student here at SIU. I'm studying psychology. Many people ask me about my service dog. They either think I'm training him because I don't look like I have a disability. I don't look like I'm blind. I get that a lot. That's a really common misconception, is that everybody with a service dog is blind. If you're not blind, you can't have a service dog. And that's not true. There's so many things that service dogs do for people, from helping with anxiety, helping with mobility issues, seizure alerts, diabetic alert dogs, so many things they can do. Any kind of medical? Anything medical. The service dogs are being trained to do so many things for people. So that's a really common misconception. I get a lot of, I've even had complaints from clientele or things when I try and go into a restaurant or a store saying, you're not blind, you shouldn't be here with a dog, but I have every legal right to be there because he is a trained service dog. So that's one of the first issues I have with the service dog.
Do you necessarily have to have like documentation to back that up, or have you ever been outright refused?
I have been outright refused to go into establishments, especially food-based establishments, and particularly if there's a cultural barrier where there's a lack of understanding of service dogs. I try to come prepared and educate people whenever I can. I have these little cards that I will hand to business owners or people who have a problem with me going into restaurants or businesses. I also have him wear his service dog vest so that it's clearly visible that he is a service dog. And I bring his identification and papers with me, but legally I don't have to, because there isn't a standardized ID card for service dogs. So there isn't a way to legally prove that this is a certified service dog. So,
do you think that needs to be changed in some way?
I think it would be helpful to have a national database registry for service dogs, but I don't foresee that coming in the near future because there's so many different places you can get your service dog trained at that it would take a lot of coordination to get to where everybody sends their certification to one place, and so many people to process all of that and make and send out special identification cards. So I don't think that that's really going to happen anytime soon, but it would be helpful so that people would be less concerned about false service dogs.
Yeah, because I've heard, mainly with the research and stuff I've done, especially when I was an undergrad, I completed a degree in rehabilitation services, and they talked a lot about how sometimes service dogs don't really behave as the way service dogs should.
Right.
Sure, like for example, if a dog relieves themselves in a classroom or.
Yeah, there's a few reasons why that could happen. Either the dog's not truly a service dog, not a trained dog, and they're just pretending the dog's a service dog, or two, the handler isn't paying enough attention to their dog to know that their dog needs to go outside. So sometimes it's the dog that's the problem, sometimes it's the owner that's the problem. It kind of depends on the situation, but unfortunately it's really easy for people to fake having a service dog, which is why there are certain qualifications where a business can kick somebody out of a business if they have a service dog. So if I were to go into somewhere with my dog Ace and he were to start barking at people and growling at people, they have no reason to believe that he's a service dog at that point. No matter what identification I have, they can still kick me out legally without any repercussions. But if I go in there and he's perfectly behaved, he obeys my every command, like he always does because he is a trained service dog, then they can't legally kick me out without the potential of having legal action against them. I don't plan on pursuing legal action against anyone. I just want people to be educated because I'm not the only one out there with a service dog, and other people with service dogs could have similar issues and might not be able to handle it as calmly as I do.
Sure, that is a genuine concern. And of course, for the people at home and for those that don't know, would you mind explaining that even though this furry friend here and others service animals may obviously look very cute and they're very adorable, the importance of understanding that they're not pets.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Even though I get to take him everywhere, it's not like taking a pet everywhere. I get a lot of people coming up to me wanting to pet him. Sometimes they'll even say, I know you can't pet him, but, while they're going down to pet him anyway. Or they'll say, I know I'm not supposed to pet him, but they'll talk to him in a really high baby pitch type voice, which is, for a dog, just as distracting as if you reach down to pet him. Also, you know, just walking up and petting him without even saying anything is distracting not only to him, but it can also be potentially bad for me with my medical conditions to then have issues with that resulting from that. Also, you know, when people come up and say, you know, well, you're not blind, what does he do for you? What's your disability? Not only is that, you know, not very polite, it can then cause me some stress and anxiety, which can then build on my other medical issues.
Sure.
One of the biggest questions that I get with him is if he ever gets to play. People think that, you know, he's a service dog, he's working 24/7, he never gets to be a puppy. But the great thing about service dogs is if they're well trained, they can go out and play and still come back and do their duties to help me, interrupting their own play by helping me. So it's wonderful because he interrupts his sleep to help me, he interrupts his play to help me, so he still gets to live a normal dog life, but he's still helping me 24/7. So that's great. Also, when I'm going to a restaurant, for example, I get a lot of times people wanting to just sneak him some food, whether they ask me or not, and that's definitely not okay, because I have to monitor his diet, make sure that he's healthy, make sure that he's getting the nutrients he needs, and also it's distracting for him if every time I go in a restaurant, people give him food, he's going to think, when I go in a restaurant, I get food, and he's not going to work the way he needs to work for me. So,
do you have any strategies in place to help manage that, or I mean, did you try to make him like as least likely to be visible as possible?
No, I let him be visible. People like to see the dog, so I don't have a problem with that. But what I do is, as I mentioned earlier about the handler being an important part of the dog, me being his handler, it's on me to make sure I know whether he needs to go to the bathroom, I know if he needs water, I know if he needs food. So in all those situations, not only that, when I go into a restaurant, I need to know if there's food on the floor so I can see it before he does to avoid him eating it. Because if there's food on the floor and he tries to eat it, I won't know if somebody maybe spilled a pill that was with that food and he could potentially harm himself by eating that. So he's never allowed to eat food off the floor. So everywhere I go, I'm always supposed to be vigilant and paying attention to my surroundings for him.
So do you have to, like, I know this may seem like an awkward, but do you have to like control the dog's mouth in any way to make sure when you first walk in?
I actually don't, and I understand your question, it makes sense, but the amount of training he's gone through, and any really good service dog will have gone through a lot of training to where they know not to eat food just because it's there. Whenever I even feed him in his bowl, I put down the bowl and he doesn't get the food until I release him to get the food. So all of his training is incorporated every day when I go to a restaurant, when I eat, all the time. He's always thinking about, do I take this food or don't I?
So I mean, I would imagine routines are
very helpful for him, which is why when we
Like
get
he
interrupted and we're trying to, I know people want to talk to him, want to talk to me about him, but sometimes I'm, kind of in a hurry to get somewhere. We have our routine, we have stuff going on, we can't just, stop and chit chat.
Sure, that happens with anybody, regardless of whether you have a noticeable disability or not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
My understanding is, and obviously I can see on his harness there that he's from disabled veteran, and I also understand that you also work there or are employed there. Could you talk a little bit about that and the work that you do there?
Definitely, I'd be glad to. I got ACE through Disabled Veteran. They trained him for me. October last year, 2013, he graduated from there, and I picked him up and I went back to Texas, where I lived at the time. And after I'd had him for 2 months, I realized just how much he was helping me, and I didn't pay a dime for him. And so I really wanted to give back to the organization that trained him, and so I moved to Illinois specifically with that purpose, not having any promise of a job. I just moved here hoping to be able to give back in some way, and deciding to go to school at SIU for psychology.
Are you not from Illinois originally?
Originally, no, I'm not. I moved around a lot growing up, so I don't really have an originally from place, but after I moved here, I did end up getting a job at Extreme K9 and Disabled Veteran, kind of a combined job, where I learned how the training works, how they train the service dogs, and I actually was able to participate in the graduating class this summer in July, and it was just amazing being able to see the change in the veterans from they're here for 3 weeks at no cost to them, from the lodging to the food to the dog itself, and just the change in those 6, I believe it was, veterans this summer in that period of 3 weeks. And then they went home with their dogs, and they continued to improve in their PTSD and their some of them other medical issues as well. So that was amazing, being able to see that and work with that and be part of it and give back, because he's done so much for me and continues to do so much for me. But I actually, in having learned how to train the service dogs, I plan on continuing to help with Disabled Veteran, and when I finish with my degrees, I plan on going to graduate school and becoming a psychologist and incorporating the work of the dogs in with the psychology and being able to help more people and spread the program of Disabled Veteran.
So do you actually train?
I actually do train the dogs now. I didn't train Ace, he was trained for me, but I do train the dogs now.
To get a dog from Disabled Veteran, like, you have to be a vet?
Yes, you have to be a veteran. There are other special qualifications, such as you have to be seeking help, not just, want to go get a dog and pretend like you're recovering. You have to actually actively want help. And for me, it was amazing going through the program, because it's not just, here's a dog, go live your life. They have a 3-week program that you have to go through, and you learn about the dogs, you learn how they work, you learn how to continue their training, but you also learn how to deal with the PTSD and continue to improve through your life with the dog. And for me, I learned more and improved more in that 3-week period than I did in 5 years of psychiatrists, psychologists, and social workers. So it's just put such a big impact on my life.
Well, sure. I mean, I'm sure those environmental supports definitely help you. Definitely.
And I've gained a network of friends, and they feel like family to me that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't come up here.
So Sarai, I thank you for sitting down with me this evening. I really appreciate your input and feedback. You really have given our viewers at home a lot of information that I would guess they didn't know previously. And thank you, Ace, for showing up for our session this evening. And thanks to the viewers at home for tuning in this evening. From all of us here, take care, and we'll see you next time.